Um, yeah, I mean, so we're certainly excited to be hosting the game this week. That was the goal from the very beginning. Um, and something that, it's been a year's worth of work to get here. And I'm proud of our team, for the really the consistency and the focus that they've had all year to be able to, maintain. It's hard to win games. Certainly, it's hard to win 10 of them. It's hard to play well week after week. I think it requires a team that has a lot of discipline, a team that has a lot of focus, and a team that really has a vision in what they want. So, we're excited to be hosting it. Proud to be representing the Western Division here again, and certainly, excited to play Marshall. I mean, a really good football team. I think, when you watch it, I think the best team in the West is playing the best
You
team in the
do
East.
what you
I think
do.
that's what you want. So, for us, we're proud to be representing the Western Division and have a chance to play for a conference championship.
I appreciate that, Coach. We'll start off with Mike Barber. Mike.
Morning, Coach. Congratulations.
Thank you.
When you look at Marshall and in particular Mike Green, what makes him such a disruptive force off the edge for them?
Well, I mean, the guy's got a ton of tools. I mean, he's probably the most unique player in the league, from everyone that I've seen, just, being honest. He's big, he's long, he's twitched up. I think he's physical. He's got a multitude of moves. I mean, he can beat you with speed. He's kind of got that Euro step down that everybody's doing a little bit. He can go speed to power and he can get in your chest and he can drive it back. He's a problem, one on one. No one's had success blocking him one on one yet. So, certainly we're going to have to be prepared and have a plan for him. Do as much as you can to try to provide some help there. But I think they do. I think they do a hell of a job, though. They don't leave him stationary. They don't put him in one spot. Um, he's in a different spot every time, and you get the third downs, and he's certainly all over the place. So, I think the kid is tremendously talented, but he plays really, really hard too. On top of all that, and then I think you couple it with a staff that does a great job. They put him in position to be successful. It's hard to pinpoint where he's going to be at. You can't really pick your matchups. They do a good job of picking that. Uh, so it's gonna require some guys to really be dialed in, really be locked in, and I mean more than anything, strain and play with a lot of effort to try to extend the down as long as you can.
When you face a guy who a team will move around like that and who is difficult, obviously, to block one on one, do you have to guard against I don't know, overthinking the game plan, worrying too much about him, and obviously you don't want to get away from what's made you successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's a good question. It's a good point. I think there's always that balance between, what got you here and got you to this point and trusting your guys to go out there and play well. Um, and then, trying to make sure you protect them too and give them the best chance to play well. Uh, Here's the deal though. I mean, this is probably the biggest front that we've played this year. It's not like, he's the only issue they got. I mean, they've got guys that win in one-on-ones all over the place. So, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if he was the only good player they had on defense or the only one they had on the front. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to be one-on-one with them I mean, in the game. I mean, that's going to happen. And, we're going to have to hope, we can win more than we lose. And, to me, I think it is a good point, though. I mean, you have to kind of trust your guys that helped you get here. They've held up, most of the year really well. And, we're going to have to do it again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Over to Dan McDonald.
There I am. Morning, Coach. There was some, there were some concerns, I'm sure, obviously, from a lot of people when Ben Woods went down. Can you talk about how Chandler Fields has stepped in and what's been able to make him so effective?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly there was a lot of concern. I mean, anytime you lose your starting quarterback, it's not good for anybody. Unfortunately, we've kind of lived in this world for 3 years in a row. Um, I think that has helped though with the belief that everybody had in Chandler. I mean, he's come in here in tough situations and played really well before. I mean, the last couple of years he's come in, he's had to win games to get us to bowl games. This year he had to win games to get us in a conference championship. So, the guy has performed under pressure over and over again for us. He's a pro. It's hard to say that you've got any more respect for someone than I have for Chandler. I think one of the hardest things in the world is to be the backup quarterback because you're expected to prepare like the starter, but there's no guarantee you're ever going to play. And then when your number's called, you better be ready to play. You know, I mean, there's no excuse. I mean, where we were in the season, you know, we have 135 guys on this team that helped us get into contention to play for a conference championship. And, you know, Chandler prepared the whole year. He wasn't going to be the one that let us down. And, you know, I think he played tremendous against Troy, you know, really the whole game. The second half at South Al when he came in and played great. Thought last week the first quarter wasn't his best. I thought he did a hell of a job though, and just settled in after that and played really good football for 3 quarters. So he's a veteran guy that's played in big games. You know, he's got belief in himself. Everyone in our building, on our team, everybody's got a ton of belief in him as well. So, you know, he's performing as we expected, you know, which is, you know, maybe not fair to him to expect someone to come off the bench and be able to play like he has. But I mean, we've seen him do it before. Like I told him, I said, we're going to let you play. I mean, we're not changing what we do because, you know, because he's playing. I believe that he can run everything we need to run and do it all.
You talk about him being able to run everything. Are there some things that maybe he gives you that may be a little bit different than what Ben gave you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, he and Ben are both tremendously talented, but I mean, I don't know if they could be any more different, you know, as players, really, the way they are, you know. Um, with Ben, there are certain throws and certain concepts that he doesn't like, doesn't feel real comfortable with. You know, Chandler, kind of the gunslinger he is, there ain't a throw he's ever seen that he doesn't like. So, you know, we have a lot of things in our offense that, you know, as time went on, you could tell Ben didn't like them, kind of whether he expressed that or just kind of tell he didn't really feel comfortable throwing it. Well, those things kind of come off the shelf with Chandler, you know, because you know, he likes to push it down the field. He likes to do all those things. And, you know, that's kind of his game a little bit. You know, I think as far as a runner goes, you know, Chandler is probably a little bit quicker, not probably, he's a little quicker than Ben is. So that gives you some stuff in there. But, you know, I mean, the reality of it is that, you know, over the course of a year, you know, from spring ball to fall camp and everything, you know, you have summer workouts, all this stuff. You've got 5,000, you know, snaps with your team and working good on good. There's a lot of offense there. You just try to tailor it to who's playing and kind of what you're trying to do. So it's not like you have to change offenses. You just maybe pick a couple more things from here that he likes and take a couple things that, you know, maybe Ben like better that maybe don't fit him as well. So it's not a change in offense or anything. It's just some nuances to it.
If I could ask one more quickly, the first game that you served as head coach when you took over the program was against Marshall there at the Superdome in the bowl game. Um, where are you? How different are you as a guy to lead the program than maybe you were, you know, for that bowl game now 3 years ago?
I don't feel like I'm even the same person anymore, to be honest with you. You know, Coach Stoker says this all the time. You know, he's a head coach for a long time. He says it's like living in dog years. And you know, you learn a lot. You know, after that first game, you know, that's kind of when the college football world kind of turned on its head, and you know, we had to navigate an entire new system of what college football is. You know, that was the first year of NIL and the transfer portal. Um, it was a completely new era in roster management. It was a completely different game. You know, when you start talking about, you know, recruiting your own players because other people are recruiting them, you know, all these things that go into it. You know, it's yeah, I mean, I've changed quite a bit. I think I've learned a lot. You know, naturally, you know, I think anytime you first take a job, you always think you're ready, and then you get into it and you find out you really weren't ready. It's been like that for me in every job I've ever had. So, you know, it was baptism by fire, but, you know, I'm very fortunate and very thankful. You know, our administration has been great. You know, they let me work on building this roster the way that I felt was right. They allowed me to recruit the players I wanted to recruit, to hire the staff I wanted to hire. And I always felt like the way we were building it, I thought that by the time we got to year 3 would be the year that we, you know, really had a team that we felt could compete. And so I'm grateful for those things. I'm grateful for our players who stayed here. I mean, in the time right now where the popular thing is to leave and to jump ship and to always look for a reason to go, these guys decide to stay. And the plan I had with recruiting high school kids and building it with a high school foundation wouldn't have worked if these guys hadn't stayed. So, yeah, I've changed a lot, but I think a lot of the things that I believed in from the beginning have only been, reinforced, over the last couple of years where I fully believe in them. At first you hope that's what it was going to work because no one knew. Um, but now I do believe that this is the way to build it. I know it's the way to build it. And that's the way we'll try to continue to do it to sustain success.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Yep.
All right, we'll go over to Joe. Joe.
Hey, Coach. You hit on it a bit there, but through all the change of the last 4 or 5 years, you've got quite a few players on your team who are obviously difference makers, leaders who have been here for 4 years or more at this point. What does that say about just the culture that you've made and the buy-in that they have to what you're doing?
Well, what I hope it says is I hope it says that these are guys that are still choosing to come here for the right reasons. We recruit young men and their families to come here because I know Louisiana is a special place. It's the best decision, I made in my life, aside from marrying my wife, was to attend the University of Louisiana and come to school here. This place is special to me. You know, I say this all the time, and people, we use the hashtag culture here. We've used that for years since Billy got here. And, everyone talks about culture, but we talk about it every day. And the thing I tell the players is this, they are responsible for the culture. The head coach gets all kind of credit, right, when things are good, and he gets all the blame when it's bad, and that's fine. But the reality of it is that the culture is built by the team. And, my job is to make sure that we as a staff are recruiting the right type of young men to come in here that are culture builders, because it never stays the same. Every day you're either building the culture or you're breaking it down. And that's a team-led thing. They are responsible. The word culture comes from the root word that means to grow or to cultivate. So it's never stops. It's not something that's ever stagnant. And, I think winning is a byproduct of having the right people who do things the right way. Everyone's got good players in this league. I mean, I told our staff this the other day, there's not one team that you go out there and look around and say, man, there's not one guy on that team that we would love to have here. I mean, we got a bunch that they would love to have. That's the way it works. So I think what it really comes down to is it comes down to making sure you have the right people in the building. And it's a bunch of guys that they do believe in each other. They chose to stay, I think, because they see the value in playing for the University of Louisiana. And, in a world where the grass is always greener somewhere else, I mean, I'm the same way. I don't have any desire to leave this place. This is home for me. I want to build something here that lasts forever. And, we have a senior-led group this year that they chose to do the same thing. So, that's the culture that we want to continue to build. But again, it never stays stagnant. Just because you have it figured out one year certainly doesn't mean that, oh, well, this is it. This is just the way it is. You have to continue to work to grow and improve that. And these guys have left their mark here. We need the next group to stay and do the same thing.
And then I wanted to ask you about your running back room as well. Bill Davis is over 5 yards a carry. Zylan Perry's over 6 yards a carry. Draylon Washington's over 7 yards a carry. Just what do you think of the depth that you guys have built up and, the things that they've shown over the course of this year?
Well, I mean, we've been very fortunate here. I mean, shoot, you can go all the way back to whenever I played. We had Tyrell Fenroy, I mean, Tyrell Fenroy, Elijah McGuire, Alonzo Harris, Elijah Mitchell. I mean, Trey Regis, Raymond Call. I mean, you can go on and on and on about the guys that we've had here. So we've been very fortunate to have very good running backs. And going into the year, I felt like our offensive line would be one of the strengths of our team with all the veterans we had back. Our tight end group was young but really talented. Those guys have played very well for us. And, we felt like we had three backs that kind of fit the Chris Smith, Eli Mitchell, Trey Regis role, where we had three of those guys that were all ready to go. And it helps, I mean, right now, you get to the end of the year and you got a couple of those guys by the nature of the position are going to be a little banged up. It allows us to really kind of spread the workload. And, for us, I think the big thing with our running backs is, yeah, they spread the load and they share the love a little bit. But when they get to the NFL guys love them because they got a lot of tread left on the tires. So it's worked for us. I think Coach Bergeron's done a phenomenal job with those guys. He works really hard with them to teach them, the ins and outs of protections and the run schemes and all that stuff so they can play even faster. Because really, Zylan and Bill are both, both young kids that are still learning. Dre's been here for a while, so he's got to figure it out a little bit more. But he's done a great job with them. We go into every game and we have a plan for, basically it's just going to be who's going to start. After that, we roll them in there, and whoever's got the hot hand's going to roll. So a lot of people make the run game work. Quarterback gets us in a lot of good runs. O-line, tight ends block it up. Our receivers have done a much better job as the year is going on blocking on the perimeter. And certainly we've got 3 talented individuals that can carry the load.
I'll go over to Marcus. Marcus?
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, man. Just looking at this week, obviously there is a game to play later down the line, but when you look at the journey since you became head coach to get to this point, just how rewarding is this week to be able to say that you guys are not only playing for a Sun Belt championship, but also hosted it?
Well, I mean, it's special for this team, because I told them yesterday whenever we sat there and talked, this is something that we spoke into existence. And, we said this in January, coming off of a 6 and 7 season when people had really written us off and kind of left us for dead a little bit. And, people love to say things are impossible, because it's hard, you know, people, when they say something's impossible, it's usually because they don't want to work that hard, or it requires more than they're willing to give. And for us, it was just about doing it. And, it's one thing to say it, right? It's one thing to have that goal. And I tell them this every year, at the beginning of every fall camp, every team in America, their goal is to win a conference championship. Nobody's goal is to, hey, let's go 500 this year. Like, that's what we're shooting for. I mean, nobody sits in a room and says that. So the difference is, what are you willing to actually do to get there? And I think that's what's so rewarding about it, is I've seen the work, since January. And, look, I tell the truth. I mean, I said from the beginning of the year, I felt like we had a chance to have a great team. Last year I knew we had a chance to have a good team if we could grow up. We didn't. We didn't handle some things really well. I knew this year with the maturity coming back, we had a good football team. I mean, I've been around football my entire life. I mean, I knew what this team had and what it's made of. So I'm happy for them. It's not about me. It's never been about me. They did the work day after day. They showed up, and it was just a daily approach to doing it. And like I said, it's how bad do you really want what you say you want? Everybody says a bunch of stuff, but when it really comes down to it, their priorities are not in line. This team has prioritized the team first. Everything that we've done has been for the team. And, like I said, it was always about getting to play another game here in Lafayette. It was always about getting to earn a 7th home game in front of our fans to play for a conference championship. So, that was what it was about. Now it's about winning it. And, I'm happy these guys get the opportunity to do that because they deserve it.
Matt.
Coach, good morning. Marshall's going to come in to Lafayette this Saturday, winners of their last 6, playing probably some of the best football in group of 5. And a lot of that has to do with the play of Braylon Braxton at quarterback. What have you seen on tape from him? What does he bring to the table from a defensive standpoint that you guys might have some issues defending?
Well, the guy runs the ball like a running back. I mean, he's a really effective runner, first of all, and I think that's kind of where their game goes. I mean, I think they've got a culture of toughness up there. I mean, they're going to establish the run, and I think this guy kind of exemplifies it. He runs the ball. He's got an unbelievable play strength. Most quarterbacks, it's not like that. You get a hand on them, they're down. This guy, he runs it like a dang running back. But the thing I've been unfortunately surprised with is he throws it a lot better than I was hoping he was going to throw it. Watching tape, we didn't have a bunch of crossover with those guys. So, this last couple of days, the first time I got to see him, I think he does a heck of a job. I think, they've got some big wideouts on the outside that get open. They've got a slot guy that's got some juice. He takes the gimmies, man. He's accurate in the quick game. And then once you start pressing, they throw the shots over the top to these 6'4" and 6'3" guys that go and get them. So, I think the thing that kind of jumped out to me is they've got 25 passing touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, they'll run the ball, and then you get down in the red zone, goal zone, and then they're going to throw it in the end zone, and they make plays on it. So it's I think this guy's a heck of a player. I think he exemplifies probably what their team, what they want it to be. You know, he's a tough dude at quarterback. He don't slide. He don't run out of bounds. He plays the game. You know, I love the way he plays. You know, you watch him play. He runs the show back there. He plays with like elite toughness, but he's a quarterback. I mean, like I said, they've got a good plan. If you're going to play off and give it to them, they're just going to take gimmies. And then if you come up and press, they're going to throw it over your head and let the big guys make a play. And I think it's right in his wheelhouse. So, again, you know, I have a lot of respect for Coach Huff. I think he and his staff have done a phenomenal job this year. You know, I mean, hell, they're kind of like us, right? Nobody thought they were going to do anything this year. So, you know, that's the Sun Belt, I guess. But I think they've done a great job with this team, and the quarterback's no exception.
Hey, Coach. You know, for you guys defensively, obviously KC is such a big part of that. Can you just talk about what his leadership has meant, you know, to this team this year? You've talked about the veteran group, but specifically him.
Yeah, I mean, to me, there's two guys on this team that have been, without a doubt, you know, the unquestioned leaders, and I think it's KC and Ben Woodridge. And I mean, I think when you talk about those two guys as counterparts to each other, you know, you got a hell of a thing, because I think when you're the leaders that everybody respects are the hardest working guys on the team, and they're the ones that are demanding it, it's a whole lot easier to get it. You know, everyone knows this. Every really good team is always going to be player led. I mean, if coaches have to go out there and, you know, as coaches, your job's to do what you have to do, right? Your job is to do those things when you need to, but that takes away from being able to coach. That takes away from being able to do things that are going to help your team win. When the team polices things and the team believes in accountability and the team, you know, they demand what is expected, again, the culture grows. And, you know, guys like KC, I mean, it was obvious from the day that he got here that he was different. I mean, his mindset and just the way he approaches things, he's not like everybody else. He demands a lot from his teammates, but he's never demeaning. He demands a lot from himself, more than even we can ever ask of him, which is what you want your leaders to be. You know, and I think he exemplifies a leader that always takes more blame than he probably should and always deflects the credit. And, you know, I think when you have that, you have a hell of a thing. You know, and KC has meant a lot to our team. Obviously, his play has been phenomenal, but that's not even scratching the surface of what his impact is for this team. It's the day-to-day. It's every day when he walks in the building, his approach and his business-like approach to what we're doing, it's contagious. And, yeah, I mean, I don't think you could – I certainly don't have the words to say how important he's been to us. It's something that I, you know, certainly couldn't put into words. It's just been a special group, man, and he's like the bell cow on that defense for the one that sets the tone.
Go back over to Dan. Dan.
If I could ask one more, Coach, I'd be negligent if I didn't ask you about Kenny Almendaris. You know, he's got a chance to not just be in a finalist, but to win the Lou Groza Award. Did you expect that from him this year? And also, what does it say about him as a young man that one of the guys that he's taking with him to the award ceremony is his holder, Dalen Cambry?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say I expected the guy to be a Lou Groza finalist. I mean, that's, you know, you talk about when you get on the preseason watch list, that's a big deal, right? When you get named a semifinalist, that's a big deal. To be in the top 3 in the country, and your respective field, whatever that is, I mean, shoot, I certainly wouldn't say I expected that. I expect him to have a big year for us. You know, I mean, I know how hard he's worked, and, you know, you've seen his confidence just continue to grow, and he just works at it every day. So I expected him to have a great year. You know, it's such a luxury, though, whenever you know, I mean, hell, when we cross the 35-yard line, you know you got points. So it allows you to do things to where you don't put the ball in jeopardy. It allows you to take some chances maybe if you want to, because you know you got points. You know, and there's been quite a few games where we got down in the red zone and we were up, and it was like, well, let's just be really smart here. We're just going to extend the lead by 3. because we're in position just to go win the game, which is the name of it. So yeah, I mean, he's been phenomenal for us. I think it's hard to say I expected him, to have the year he's having. But look, I don't know if I don't think there's a national award for it, but if there was, Dalen Cambry would be the national holder of the year. There's no question about it. I mean, that guy has been phenomenal. So I'm not surprised that Kenny sees him as a huge part of his success, because I think Dalen's done a phenomenal job for us. But again, I mean, Kenny's one of those people that he's really humble. He's got a humble spirit. I mean, he's talked about, since he's won these awards, is how much he appreciates his teammates, and how much he appreciates, I mean, they got 9 guys up there blocking for him, right? So they got, really 8 blocking, 1 snapping, 1 holding, and him kicking. So it takes 11 of them to make that work every time. He doesn't get field goal attempts if it's not for the offense moving the football. He knows that it takes the whole team. But he has been, we expect people to perform at a high level. And we say that over here all the time. Every job nobody's safe. Every job is always being evaluated. And once you win the job, that's not the hard part. It's keeping it. And we've pushed him year after year with competition. I mean, a couple springs ago, shoot, he was right in the middle of competition. And he comes out of it, the winner of the competition, and he's never looked back. So, there takes some mental toughness in that. I think being a kicker, like, I've never had to kick a field goal in my life. I don't know the first thing about it, but I know there's sure as hell a lot of eyes on you. And whenever you got to go out there and perform, everyone expects you to do it. So there's some mental toughness and some grit involved in that too. And Kenny certainly got that.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Sure.
We got time for one more from us, Sam.
Coach, you've spoken about the team first approach, and you've got a guy in Lance Lejean that's transitioned from QB to wide receiver for your team. When you made that decision, or you and your staff made that decision back in 2022 for him to transition to wide receiver, did you ever imagine he'd be your leading wide receiver this season? And then, kind of what has it been like to see him blossom into that top wide receiver role for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I told him when we made the move, I said, you're gonna play in the NFL. You're gonna be an NFL wide receiver. I've been fortunate to be around here and have seen some. Lance, I don't know if he believed me, at first, but I would love to say that it was easy. It was just, jumped in with both feet. It was a little reluctant at first. But the reality of it is he did it, and he trusted us, and he trusted me. Ran out there and started working on his craft at receiver. He hasn't had a whole lot of time to really perfect his trade there. Between, off-season shoulder surgery and missing time for different things. He hasn't had a ton of time. So, I mean, for him, every day is still learning. Every day is a learning curve. Every day he's still making new mistakes that typically seniors wouldn't make, but he's learning from it. And, there's one thing that's for sure is I don't know that football could be any more important for anyone than it is for Lance. He loves it. I mean, the guy practices. Every day is game day for him. When you go out there and you go to, I mean, he makes one spectacular catch every single day that everybody in the building is just like, oh my God, I mean, the NFL scouts come by, and I mean, he's got this tremendous ceiling especially because he hasn't played a lot of receiver. But there's so many stories on this team about guys who have put this team in front of themselves. So many stories about guys who have been through adversity. Some of them through hell and back, to be able to go out there and represent our team and our university. And Lance is one of them, man. And everyone on this team loves that kid because he goes every day and he goes hard and he don't say a word. He just works and he just shows up and he works. And he has he's a joyful person. He's out there every day. He doesn't say a whole lot, just goes to work, but he don't have a bad day. I mean, if he does, you never know. And, I'm proud of him. I'm happy for him. But yeah, I'm not surprised that he's playing that well for us at wide receiver. I knew what he was capable of, and I'm proud of him for making it work.
Thank you. And thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time today.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, obviously phenomenal game last week. Hats off to JMU. I haven't been in this league very long, but I would probably say probably goes down as one of the most exciting games to be played in this conference with what was on the line and two teams fighting. Really proud of our players for the way they continued to battle, continued to believe, and created an opportunity for us to go play for what every team in the country started their season off for, which was a championship. We've created that opportunity now. We got to prepare really well this week to get ready to face a challenging ULL football team down at their place.
Let's start off with Dan McDonald. Dan?
Morning, Coach.
Morning.
What does it say about it, and trying to amplify what you just touched on just for a minute? What does it say about your football team that you go down 17-0 on a hostile field, and it did not look like there was any panic or any real concern on your sidelines? It looked a lot like business as usual.
Yeah, it says we're probably not the fifth best team in the Sun Belt, which is where a lot of you guys had us picked. Which I say
I
that
didn't have a vote.
I saw your vote there at your job. You had it on the work at the coffee station. You had it kind of underneath. No, I say that. It says, I use that a lot with our guys that no one can rank or no one can evaluate what's inside your shoulder pads, and that's the heart that you show up with. That's the intensity and focus you practice with. And when you have that, it doesn't matter what the outside circumstances say. And I use that as the outside circumstances being the scoreboard. And that's an external factor. In that game, we knew we hadn't played up to our level of potential. We went in at halftime. It wasn't a panic. We made the adjustments, and it actually came down. We just weren't doing our jobs. We were a little hesitant. Guys had their eyes in the right place, but they wouldn't pull the trigger. I didn't think we were as physical as we needed to be in the first half. And we just told the guys, just relax. You guys got us here by playing really, really tough, physical, and the discipline. And, ultimately, we went out and played with a lot more, confidence in what we were doing, a lot more trust in our teammates, a lot more energy, and we executed better. Momentum is a dangerous thing, and kind of once we got the ball rolling. But I will say that the mentality of whether we were in it, didn't believe, weren't going to make a play, never wavered from the time we stepped on the field. And that's what happens. If you can keep that belief and you can keep improving, and ultimately you got to execute. That's what it comes down to at some point. But if you can do that, special things can happen.
If I could ask one more, that game almost like a microcosm of your year. Where are you better right now than maybe you were at the start of the year as far as, different positions team wise?
Well, as coaches, we kind of know what we have. In this transfer portal world, you don't get to play. We don't get a preseason. So we don't get to play games in the preseason. And we practice. Every team practices, but there is a difference when the lights come on. And there's not a coach behind you telling you what to be ready for. There's not a coach telling you, hey, on the next play, you're going to run this and they're going to do this. So I think as the year goes on, the coaches and staffs who can better understand who their team is, obviously there are games where we've run it more. There's games where we've thrown it more. There's games where we've pressured more. There's games where we play base more. I think once you kind of understand who your team is, in the back half of the year, you can kind of play to your identity, if that makes sense, right? You have a culture, which is what you believe in, how you practice, how hard you play, but your identity is what happens throughout the year. If you get injuries earlier in the year, your identity may change. If you're able to stay healthy throughout the season, your identity may change. I think, our quarterback is probably a really good example of that. He's gotten more and more comfortable as the year is going on. Which has allowed our identity to change a little bit as the season's going on.
Go to Matt.
Coach, good morning. I've got two questions for you. Number one, you guys are winners of your last 6 games. coming in, probably playing some of the hottest football in the country right now, but facing a really talented and a really tough Louisiana team at home. What's kind of the mindset of keeping your guys, locked into the mission of continuing that success on the field against one of the toughest opponents you guys have played this year?
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's no bad teams in championship games. That's just the reality of it. I mean, every team in a championship game is a good football team. That's why they're in the championship. The other thing is, if you're a coach and you have to motivate your guys to be ready to play in the championship game, then you probably haven't done your job all year. Our guys are fully aware this is, the best of the best. That means we got to have the best of the best week of preparation. What we've done in the past, obviously, you carry those reps and those experiences, but none of those points matter. We don't go out and play extremely well and extremely disciplined. Saturday, we're going to get beat. Where you play the game, in my opinion, does not really matter. Does it matter from a logistics standpoint and a travel and those type of things? Yes. As long as the field is 100 yards long and 53 in the third wide, we still got to go out and execute. I was on these calls a couple of weeks ago, and you guys reminded me that we couldn't win on the road. Now you're reminding me that we're 6-0 and we're the best team in the country. Like I tell the guys, it's criticism goes both ways, and you can't get caught up in either. You can't get caught up in the criticism when you're not doing well. You can't get caught up in the praise when you're doing well. Ultimately, we got to go out and execute really well against a really good football team. And because you're in a championship game, the heightened awareness that the other team is really good. I think ULL, excuse me, has a better record than we do. So they've done a lot better job getting to this point on their side in their journey. So we've got to understand that. We've got to be able to make sure that our areas of deficiency we were cleaning up, because you get exposed in championship games when you have deficiencies. And then the areas of strength, we got to make sure we point them, because obviously ULL knows what we do well. So they're working on trying to negate that. From a coach's standpoint, there's no bad coaching staffs in championship games. It's going to be one hell of a chess match, between our coaches, our staff. What we can control is making sure we put our players in the best position to execute one play at a time.
We'll go over to Mike Barber. Mike.
Morning, Coach. Congratulations.
Thanks, buddy.
Hey, I wanted to know, obviously we saw Mike Green, begin to develop and emerge last season, but this year he's just been so dominant. What's the behind the scenes story? How did Mike get to this point?
I really wish, I'm not, Coach Prime or, one of those coaches that just has a camera around the building all the time. But I really wish we could, because, you want to talk about a guy who's the most humble human being you'll ever meet. Walks in the building every day like he did the first day. You wouldn't be able to tell. I call him Mr. Big Neric, and he blushes because it's embarrassing to him, because he's like, Coach, I'm just trying to get better. And it's not one of these facade things. I joke with him all the time about, all the awards and all the things he's getting, but it hasn't changed him. He's been an unbelievable teammate. He's developed into an even more influential leader as the season goes on, right? When your best players are your best leaders, you got a pretty good culture. He's developed into a more influential leader. He's been able to handle, you guys think my DMs are flooded with, what school are you coaching at next week, coach, and all this stuff. What do you think Mike Green is as far as agents and, hey, will you sign with this agency? Hey, I'm this agent. Can you sign with me? It's unbelievable the way he's handled it. I told him probably during the bye week or 2 weeks after the bye week, we went and played Southern Miss. And he had 3 sacks in the first half or whatever it was. And at halftime, we said, hey, look, you're done. We're going to play some of the younger guys. And typically, a guy that's counting stats or a guy that's, trying to, set a record is like, oh, look, let me get one more. He said, okay, I'll coach up the young guys. And I brought him in after that game. I said, I've coached a lot of really good players. There's only been one other player that I've coached in my entire career who had the same humbleness and care for others as Mike does, and that was Saquon Barkley. And I told him that. I said, and because of that, you are going to get a lot of positive things in your life, and everything that you actually work for and want will come to you because you are humble. You are a really good teammate. You do care about the guys next to you. And it's sad because I know the fans and I know people, appreciate him. But if you really got to spend time with him and interact with him every day, he's a generational talent, not just on the field, but as a human. You don't get that much. We're talking about a guy that could have went and left for NIL. We don't have any here. You know what I mean? So trust me, he ain't getting paid to stay here. A guy that, has gone out and could have very easily been at X, Y, and Z Power 5 school and chose to stay. A guy that really could come in the office and say, hey, look, coach, if I don't get X, Y, and Z, I'm not playing this week. I'm redshirting. All of the things that we read about and hear about across the country, from different players, that's not Mike Green. He is a generational talent and a generational human.
How did you get him? Obviously, he transferred from UVA. Was there a connection before, or what was the link there?
Yeah, because I'm the best recruiter in the country.
Perfect.
No, I joke, but sometimes you got relationships and you treat people the right way, and you have a track record of treating people the right way, not how many wins you have or not, how many championships you have, which all that matters. But when you have a track record of treating people the right way, some connections from the Virginia area where I've spent a lot of time, reached out when he got into his situation, said, hey, here we got a young man that's, caught up in a situation that's not true. Will you give him a second chance? And, he needs to be around you, coach, because I know you're going to help mold him, off the field as well as on the field. I know you're going to be honest with him. I know you're going to coach him hard. You're not going to treat him any differently than a walk-on. And this is what he needs right now. And got a chance to meet with his family, and everything they said that he would be, he was. And I would assume everything that I told them that I would do for him while he was here, I've done.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go over to Jeff. Joe.
Hey, Coach. Regarding Braylon Braxton, where have you seen the most development from him over the course of this year since he joined you in the offseason?
Yeah, I think he's doing a really good job of taking care of the ball, and that's a huge piece of playing quarterback. And, when we say taking care of the ball, we're not just talking throwing interceptions or fumbling. We're talking, deciding not to throw it in the double coverage, knowing when to pull it down and take off, making sure everyone's set so we don't have a procedure penalty, making sure the motions time up the right way, so we don't have, a ill-timed snap or whatever it is. And when you do that, you can do what he's done really the last 6 weeks is play really efficient. He's been able to pull the ball down and take off and get some, first downs with his legs, which keeps defenses off balance. He's been able to make some, critical throws, at critical times. Obviously, he still would like to have 3 or 4 throws back every game, but he's been really efficient and he's taking care of the ball. And I think that's a huge step for a quarterback. There's a lot of things the quarterback gets criticized for, but I don't think a lot of times quarterbacks get credit for how efficient they are and how well they take care of the ball. Not only turnovers, but all the other things.
And then big drop in penalties called on you guys this season. I think you're the least penalized team in the Sun Belt at the moment. Was that something that was specifically emphasized over the course of the year and in the offseason, or did that come about organically?
Yeah, so I met with John McDade. John is the head of officials. I brought ice cream, balloons, and a nice little cake. And I said, hey, man, if you don't call any penalties on this, you'll have plenty of ice cream. You'll have plenty of cake. No. We went back last year and we looked at, what are our issues? Turnovers and penalties. And when you turn the ball over, obviously you minimize the opportunities. when you get in penalties, you make it really difficult to stay on track or be efficient. You start getting in the 1st and 20, you start getting in the 3rd and long, and those things are hard to, overcome versus really good teams. So we just made it a really big point of emphasis of obviously fundamental discipline. I think, a lot of penalties happen, after the ball snapped. That's a little bit of fundamental, keeping your hands inside, running your feet, having your hat in good leverage. So we really focused on that. Some of them happen pre-snap, jumping off sides, not being on the line of scrimmage, double guys in motion. That goes back to where I said the quarterback's taking care of the ball, making sure we got the right formation, making sure we are, going in motion at the right time. So just an intentional focus on the things that made us inefficient last year, and trying to be more cognizant of, okay, how can we control what we can control? We have a really good opportunity to control penalties. We have a really good opportunity to control turnovers. So let's focus on those things. We can't control what the defense calls or if they blitz or play coverage, but really focus on the things we can control, and it's worked out in our favor so far.
Thank you.
We'll go to Marcus. Marcus?
Hey, Coach. Back when you guys played against Louisiana in 2021, you had a quote where I think they asked you, how good is the team, and you said they're good, they're really, really good, they're good, they're good. Like as you've looked at this team over the years from a distance, how have you seen them, take their lumps in back-to-back 6 and 7 seasons and now get to this point where, like you said, they're playing with a better record than you guys coming into this game?
Yeah, they're still really good. And I don't think they've ever taken a step back. I think they've had a couple of seasons where injuries have, kind of limited some of the things that they've been able to do. You can tell there's a culture there. Back when we played them in 21, they were big, they were physical. They had playmakers at the skill position. They came here in 22, kicked our tails because they were big and physical, and had playmakers at the skill position. And when you turn the film on now, they're big, they're physical, and they got playmakers at the skill position. You can tell there's been a philosophy in recruiting there, the types of bodies that they've recruited over the last 3 years that we've seen them. You can tell that there is a philosophy and a culture of toughness. They beat people up. I mean, that's one thing that they do. When you watch the games, they just wear you down. You can tell from a coaching perspective that they're well coached. It's not a lot of, we play these teams and it's like high school Harry. It's a muddle in the middle of the field. It's a throwback. They ain't doing none of that crap. It's real football. Line it up and run the ball at you and then throw the ball behind you. That's what they do. That's real football. They don't need the tricks and the gimmicks and let me line up in this fancy formation and, and look to the sideline and snap the ball. This is real blackjack versus thunder. They line up and they kick people's tail. And that's a lot of credit to the staff. That's a lot of credit to the players. They're very consistent in what they do. You can tell they have a system. The systems make sense on both sides of the ball. You don't see their guys out of position very often. They don't make a lot of mistakes. I'm not sure what their, penalty and turnover ratio is, but I can bet it's probably low, just because championship teams typically are low in those areas. So it's going to be a true championship football game that they have not gotten to where they are this year or the years past by circumstance or, the scenario game. If, these 3 teams lose and this team over here quits and this team over here loses 7 guys, the ineligibility, then we're in the championship. No, they've gone about it the hard way. They've earned everything they've gotten. It's going to be a challenge for us.
Matt?
Coach, you joked earlier about your DMs getting blown up about where you're going to be coaching next week. What would be your comment regarding the reports and the rumors about your future?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have kids?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, well, you're going to have a kid, and any 9-year-old can create a Twitter handle and post anything. And if you tag sources in front of it, everyone thinks that you actually know what you're talking about. So the beauty of social media is that any and everybody can post something, and if enough people retweet it or like it, all of a sudden it's true. Day jobs, I don't have any jobs on the horizon. Obviously with what we are looking at as far as an opportunity, that's where my focus has been. I know that sounds very coach cliche, but that's the reality of it. We got back at 6 a.m. and I got into bed at 6:40, and at 8:20 a.m. my 2-year-old was jumping on my forehead. So I really didn't have time to accept any jobs in between that. We came back in, and Travis let us know that we lost the computer poll to get the game home by 1,000,000 points, and we suck and we have to play it, Lafayette, no chance to play in Huntington. I had to let the team know. So I say all that to say I really haven't had an opportunity to accept any other jobs. Now, as always, I say when there is noise, I think that's a good thing. There is nobody calling the coaches of the 0-10 teams. There's nobody calling the coaches of the teams that are not in bowl games. There's no one calling the coaches of the teams that aren't having good seasons. So like I told the team yesterday, I addressed it with the team. With team success comes individual recognition. And that plays so for the coaches. I told them, I'm sure there are D1 schools hitting our guys up about going in the portal. It just doesn't go on Twitter because it's New York yesterday, noon. Whatever that plane was, it went wherever we'd like to use it, so we didn't have to bus back to Harrisonburg 6.5 hours in the snow. We'd love to use that plane and track it. But no, I get it. It's the profession that we live in. I thank the players for even having me in the position to have interest, for having the other coaches in the position to have interest. I do think, it becomes a little bit of a sticking point because of the timing, right? There's signing day on Wednesday. So these schools that do have openings have to try and do something quick. Well, us schools that have championship football teams, we got something to do quick too. That's prepare for this game. So that's where our focus is. I did address it with the team yesterday because obviously they read the Twitters and the boards and all of that. But I can say to you honestly and look you in the screen that I haven't taken any jobs. I haven't committed to any jobs right now. And I'm trying to figure out how in the hell are we going to stop the stretch versus ULL? That's where my main focus is.
I'll go over to Mike Barber. Mike?
Well, we'll stick on that for one. Will you be back with Marshall next season?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, there is contract talks that need to be had. I will say this, I've never been a coach that likes to have those discussions during the year, because I do think it takes away from focus when you start having contract discussions, because it's not will you go to the prom with me, circle yes or no, right? Contract discussions are what does it look like long term for each party? Contract discussions are what does it look like for your staff? What does it look like conference-wide, right? So those things take research and time. So I've never liked to get into those conversations during the season because, again, if I'm researching how much money ULL is spending in recruiting and how much money other schools are spending in operation budget, I'm not getting my guys ready to play. Because of that, obviously those conversations have to be delayed. Because we're playing good, that delay is even longer. But I do, the administration here and myself have had conversations about, we understand, this is going longer than typical. We understand there is going to have to come a time we have this discussion, but right now we all, myself, Brad, Christian, the board, everybody involved thinks it's best we focus on this game. It's not going to change whether we put something on paper today or, 2 days after the game or whenever that is. Right now, they said it to me, Coach Huff, you need to be focused on this game, and which I agree with. So to answer your question, we haven't gotten there yet because we're playing so well.
Well, then let me ask you one more about this game. Coach D was on before, and he mentioned the fact that you move Mike Green around formation so much, makes it difficult to, plan for how you want to approach him. How disruptive has he been, not just from the 16 sacks, but from other teams trying to account for him? And what does that do for the rest of your defense?
Yeah, well, let Coach D know I'm probably going to suspend Mike for not eating all his meals, and probably I'll move a team meeting up and make him late to a team meeting. So I'm going to suspend him because I don't think he needs to play. I think it's actually, probably best that I steal one of his cleats or something so he can't play. So Coach D, you don't have to worry about anything.
That.
Yeah, Coach D, you don't have to worry about anything with Mike Green. No, obviously what it does is now people are spending time in protection trying to double and chip and have a plan for Mike Green, which, as I always say, we know who Scottie Pippen, we know who Tony Kukoc, we know who Dennis Rodman and those guys are because of Michael Jordan. We know who Draymond Green, we know who Klay Thompson is because of Steph Curry. And I've said it to the team, because everyone is putting so much attention on Mike Green, this is an opportunity for the other guys to step up and make some plays. I think Taquez Legs has stepped up and made some plays. I think D.V. Harris has stepped up and made some plays on the other end. Jabari Ishmael has stepped up and made some plays. So there's been other opportunities for other guys to step up and make plays, because there is so much attention on how do we block, double, slide to Mike Green. And then I think the coaches are doing a good job of moving him around so that it's not always, hey, he lines up only on the right side. We know he's going to be on the right side, which again creates another level of difficulty for an offense to kind of find out, okay, where is he? How can we run this play and have protection against him? How can we put, an extra tight end or an extra back chipping on that side? Okay, if we do that, how does that affect the route combination? If we do that, how does that affect how many guys we can get out? If we do that, does that expose another one of our guys to a one-on-one that we may not want to do? So I think it creates a lot of, havoc because of, from the chess match of, okay, we got to know where he's at. We got to account for him. But that also has an effect on what teams are trying to do holistically.
Thank you.
Time for one more. We'll go with Dan Powell. Dan?
Yeah, thanks for one more, Coach. Just want to ask you kind of a philosophical question. Coach Des talked about having to re-recruit players every year. You talked about what a great young man Mike Green was for not, having to listen to all the outside noise and so forth. You've been around athletics for a long time. Are you concerned about where we're headed in college football and college athletics in general?
No, I'm concerned that there's going to have to be change, and I don't know if there's enough coaches who are willing to do that. We've been accustomed to doing things the same way for so long. We're going to have to change. We're going to have to adapt. Fans, we're going to have to adapt. Universities are going to have to adapt. Administrations are going to have to adapt. This change is what the new college landscape is going to be. I think this game is always going to be purity. It's going to be pure at the core. This game is always going to teach young men life. There's going to be men in this game who ultimately help mentor these young men. Those men are just going to have to adapt their approach. And you're not going to be able to do it the way you did it 20 years ago. You're not going to be able to do it the way Coach Saban did it, for me. There's things that'll carry over, but I can't carbon copy what he did and think it's going to work. You got to adapt. The kids have adapted. Obviously, I think there's still some rules and parameters that will be put in place to kind of help modify some of these things. But the game isn't, the ketchup's not going back in the bottle. So we're not going back. So we're going to have to adapt. We're going to have to adapt the way we recruit. We're going to have to adapt the way coaches invest in their team. We're going to have to adapt the way coaches, even, their culture is going to have to adapt, because there's going to be situations where you have a phenomenal kid who has a phenomenal year, and he's going to get opportunity somewhere else. And you can't be upset and bitter and this sucks. It's part of the new landscape. So you got to have a really good understanding of who those kids are. You got to have a really good understanding of what's the next plan. And then you got to adapt. I think that's probably more the fear for me is, are there enough good coaches that are still in this profession that are willing to adapt? Because that's what's going to have to happen. The game's not going back. And we can pound the table and we can point out all the things that are wrong with our game, but there are so many things that are great with our game. Look at last Saturday night. Was that not a great college football game? There was no flag planting. There was no, shots after the whistle. There was no pepper spray. That was a good Sun Belt football game that, was exciting, was suspenseful, that everybody left that game saying, wow, that was a good football game. So there's still some purity to this game. We're just going to have to adapt to what it's going to become in order for us to be able to keep moving it forward.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, thank you, Dan, and thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you guys. Look forward to seeing you guys Saturday.